Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending on where you're tuning in across the globe. Welcome to another edition of Crime Time with DutyRon and Ed Wallace. We are two retired New York City police detectives, and if you like all things true crime related from the police detective's perspective, hit the subscribe button, hit the notification bell, so you'll get all things DutyRon and this guy over here, Ed Wallace, all the way from Kosovo. When we go live or upload another video. Today, we are going to talk with you. We're going to have a conversation about the Vallow Daybell case, a twisted mixture of religion, money, sex, and cults and death. We're going to talk to you guys all about it. Forensics, no Friday, Forensics Sunday, because Ed is on the road. Ed, you're on the road again. Where are you? Tell everybody what you're up to, and let's jump into it quick.
I'm at the capital of Kosovo, and it's good to be here.
Yeah, you know, Ed, we all missed you. We always miss you when you're not available. And listen, life always throws a lot of curveballs at people. But you know, when you have obligations with your business, I understand it. You got, you know, this is a year like no other for the Wallace family. Ed's been traveling to multiple countries, multiple places, and he's always busy. So let's say thank you to the Patreon supporters, the channel members, and the replay viewers, the moderators. So thank you so much for all of your positive engagement. And for those of you who leave us comments after the live streams are over, we greatly appreciate that. Go and follow me and Ed on all things social media, one word, DutyRon, and you could go over to DutyRon.com. So Ed, in this trial, we're hearing so many things. It's day 18 is in the books. On Friday, they closed day 18. They're looking to wrap this case up early next week or later in the week, depending on how how the defense and the prosecution, how they wrap up. But we heard so much about forensics in this case. And Ed, who better than you to talk about forensics? We had Barbara Butcher on about a year and a half ago, and we talked about Tammy Daybell and that pink frothy foam coming from her mouth the morning she was discovered. And it's now turned out they're both on trial for her murder. But we also heard from Barbara how less than perfect, I want to be nice about this, the coroner system is across the United States. I think this case proves how dysfunctional the coroner system is across the country.
Well, there are many cases. This is just one of them. This is just the latest one. I mean, you can go back to the Michael Jordan's father's death and how that was handled by the coroner there. I mean, there's so many examples of this. But, you know, you have an otherwise healthy woman, you know, who is an athlete and dies suspiciously and no autopsy.
Yeah.
You take the husband's word for what happened here, and then he rushes to bury her. I don't think so. I'm sorry. You know, red flags are flying all over this, and the coroner missed it.
Yeah, the coroner,
okay.
not only the coroner missed it. You know, everybody involved in, you know, from the deputy coroner, which we're going to play a little piece from that now. The deputy coroner was, because of the testimony that we heard on day 16 and 17 and 18, these 3 days have been just mind-blowing of testimony from the professionals. But we heard from the deputy coroner that she's on the scene taking her phone and Googling pink frothy foam. What could cause that? So it just goes to show you, I've said it many a times, I'm afraid to really look at some of these cases outside of New York metropolitan and some of these bigger cities where you have this coroner system where people get elected and they have no credentials. They got, like, let's just listen to this, Ed, so we can give a little context to what we're going to say.
It's more than less you know, the credentials, it's the training.
Right. Yeah. But that's what I'm saying is that there's no requirements. Like, in other words, for us to become police officers back in the day, you had to have a high school diploma. Now you need college education. To get promoted, you needed a college education. There were certain things, like I would say in you know, in the coroner system where you get elected, it shouldn't just be any Tom, Dick, or Harry to come and say, hey, I want to be the coroner. but I don't have any experience. And that's what we're going to hear in this testimony. And that's the mind blowing part about it, is that some woman, meaning Tammy Daybell, or other people could be killed and then put in the ground and have a funeral in 3 days and done.
Well, I keep saying this, and Barbara has said it as well. And since I was in the business of training death investigators, protocols are important. Standards are important. We need one standard, one protocol for the entire nation. We need a national standard for these things. Okay. Right. Now, unfortunately, we don't have any legislation or funding that will do this for us, and it's sorely needed. Okay. Here's the deal. We have a saying: every scene, every time. And I say it again, everywhere. Every scene, every time, everywhere. We all should be doing this the same way, every time, and no matter what part of the country we're in. Okay. There are avenues to get training for your death investigators. There's the AMBDI. You can get training there and certifications and so forth. Now, back a while ago, forensics was demanding certifications from crime scene investigators and death investigators, fire investigators, post-blast investigators, so forth and so on. But the Department of Justice and the National Institute of Justice tried the carrot approach, carrot and stick. Okay. But it didn't work. There wasn't enough incentive. There was no funding for this to be created, and it needs to be created. Now, I'm one of the people in the forensic community that feel like if you're going to conduct crime scene investigations, you're going to conduct death investigations, I want to be treated as a licensed professional. I feel that what we do is a practice, like a doctor's practice, or engineers or architects, licensed professionals. We should be licensed by a governing body at the state or city level that oversees how we do things, what our training is, and discipline. Yeah. Should that be required? Okay. I don't see why we can't have that done. I can't see for the life of me why we can't pass legislation and get some funding to have this happen, so things like this could be put into history.
Right. Yeah. And, people are arguing in some of the, Twitter conversations, the Twitter spaces, and in Reddit groups, like, if that in fact was put in place, some type of checks and balances where there's national standards for testing and training and so forth, you wouldn't have cults and people who are trying to cover up deaths and murders get away with it. And we wouldn't be, like you said, in a position that we're in. But let's take a listen to this. I want to play this because this is telling. This, to me, when I first heard this, I shook my head. This is the testimony from the deputy coroner, and it's from day 16.
Did you observe anything else about the body that caught your attention?
I was looking, because you kind of want to look. She was 49, so I was like, this is unusual because she's not that old. So I was kind of looking for things like on her neck or bruising, scratches, those kind of things. And I observed just some bruising on a bicep. I think it was her right arm and forearm, but they didn't look new. They looked more like an older bruise. I didn't notice anything weird that way. I mean, maybe her color was normal for being deceased.
Do you notice anything regarding Tammy's face?
Besides the foam? No.
And when you talk about the foam, does that appear to be what you observed that day?
Yeah, and that's they get like a pink frothy foam, like a bleeding. That's what I assumed that to be, like some blood.
And you were saying with the pink foam?
Yeah, in my knowledge, I was thinking of things like congestive heart failure, something that I know that maybe could cause that with the pink frothing. And so my mind kind of went to that, and I was thinking that she's looking for things like swelling and things that would go with that, but I didn't see any other signs with that.
And did that pink foam, had you ever been to a death scene where you had seen that before?
I had not.
Did it cause you some concern?
It did. It caused me enough concern that I got my phone and I actually looked up poisoning, and I looked up foam from a dead person. I looked up poisoning just because I thought it was weird and I had not seen that before.
Amazing, right? You know, listening, you and I listened to that before we went live, but I heard that, you know, this was testimony from Friday. I said it was on day 16, but it was during the testimony, which was Friday, on Tammy Daybell. Ed, again, are you like, is that what we've come to? Is you have a loved one die? You know, this is a mother of 5 children, and those 5 children feel that the father's been framed still up to this day. And I don't know about the dynamics of that family, nor am I going to judge them. But her own daughter said on national television in an interview, my mom wasn't okay. She was the one who said there was pink foam coming from her mouth, and she was on the floor, not on the bed. I mean, so troubling.
I mean, that alone, the frothy pink foam from the mouth, should have been enough to trigger the coroner to demand an autopsy. What is the origin and cause of that pink foam? Right. You would think you would want to know, and an autopsy would have found it. Well, did you find it in the trachea? Did you find it in the lungs? Was it emanating from the lungs? Okay, were blood vessels breaking inside of the lungs, right? Is it pulmonary edema? What is going on? That alone should have, otherwise healthy. I want to know, you know, I mean, her doctor didn't sign the death certificate, did he?
No.
Okay, so then there was the coroner system that had to sign this death certificate, and you know, they deemed this natural, and based on what? They didn't do an examination.
Yeah, it's amazing, and you know what? Also, to add to that, Ed, why wasn't a alarm triggered to the homicide squad? Why wasn't anybody from either the local police department called on the scene by this deputy coroner? If you're now suspicious, where you're Googling white, foamy, frothy substance, why wasn't there any notification to the investigators on the scene?
Well, first of all, usually it's the police that arrive to a death first, not the coroner system, right? So the police would be responsible for notifying the detectives to come out and take a look at this. Okay. Yeah. Then the coroners come out. In this case, the deputy coroner, who's the death scene investigator, will come out representing the coroner to do in the field death scene investigation and report her findings back to the coroner. And the jurisdiction of that body belongs to, in this case, to that coroner. And again, this is the argument we've been having year after year about the differences between the coroner system and a medical examiner system, and why I feel that the medical examiner system is better than the coroner system. Now, you know, if she has to Google pink frothy foam from the mouth, that tells me that her training is lacking. Okay, like, I mean, in my death investigation course that I ran, the forensic science training program at the New York City Office of Chief Medical Examiner, all of my instructors were pathologists, death investigators, DNA experts, and so forth from our office. And we trained death investigators from around the nation on what these things mean. Right. And not only that, let's not forget about the lividity too, because we have lividity issues with this victim as well that didn't match what was being said. Right. So you've got 2 things that jump out at you and say, hey, something's wrong here. The position is not right. Then you have the fact that the husband is wiping away the pinky froth material in a towel.
Yeah.
Okay.
And rushing the process, saying, you know, he wanted to have the funeral home come, the funeral director, right away, immediately. And he also, as we're going to hear, he rushed the funeral. So family couldn't travel and come in. And he had the funeral outside of Rexburg in a whole separate area within the state of Idaho, that made no sense to Tammy's sister.
Man,
and she testified.
Everything here screamed, pump the brakes, get this victim into the morgue and have a forensic pathologist come in and do a full autopsy,
Right.
including toxicology. None of that was done. And then the body gets buried and all of that information is lost. The vitreous fluids in the eyes are probably all dried out. The body was embalmed. That messes things up as well.
Right.
So I can't understand how this occurred in today's day and age. It's mind-blowing.
And you know, Ed, Barbara did touch on that, because in about a year and a half ago, we did a live on this topic, and we asked her, 2 months or so later, her body was taken out and brought back into the medical examiner's. So she was exhumed, and they conducted more testing. And that was really the big sticking point, is like all of the viewers and the people who wanted answers to their questions were like, how are we going to be able to determine if she was drugged and her death was, done through a slow poisoning and so forth? But there was all of these. Now everyone was left to guess at what happened to her, and then now saying
none of that pink frothy material was collected and sent to the laboratory. The towel that the husband was using to wipe up the pink frothy material as it was exiting the mouth wasn't seized as evidence and sent to the lab to see what was going on here. It was just mistake after mistake after mistake. And as I said, now, if you're a death investigator, if you take your job seriously and you feel that you don't have the proper training, then go out and get the training. What's stopping you? You can get your own certifications, right? If your job is not going to give you the certifications that you feel you need, you can go to places like the AMBDI and get training from them and get their certifications. That it just goes to your professionalism, right? If you're going to be in this business, then you got to jump in with both feet and do what's required and necessary to be the best what your profession is, right? Yeah. I just don't understand this. And
I was also shocked that when she was asked if she ever responded to a scene like this where she saw a pink frothy foam, she said no. I wonder now how much experience or lack of experience did she have. It's apparent here. Let's listen to this.
Everybody's entitled to her personnel file and look up what her training is.
Right. Yeah. I just don't want to make obviously this show about that, but this is, again, we're just going over the forensics and the failures that happen. Now, what we have going on here, to lead us to this trial was a bunch of backstepping, right? Everybody did, look, this person now just died. This person died, and it's all connected to them. Maybe we ought to just, maybe we ought to do some more investigating. And that's what happened with poor Tammy Daybell, is that she was buried in the ground, put in the ground and forgotten about for months. And then when all the fallout started coming out, between
all the connections are being made.
The dots. Yeah, they were dotting, putting all the connections together. But let's listen to this real quick, Ed, and then we're going to go and move on to the kids. And before we get into that, I want to just say, again, when we talk about JJ and Tylee, Ryan, we're going to be speaking about some really sensitive stuff. So if you suffer from PTSD or anything, when it comes to that type of conversation, there's some difficult things to cover, and we're going to get into it right after this. So I just wanted to put that disclaimer out there.
Conspiracy to commit murder and grand theft in the deaths of two of her kids, JJ and Tylee, and her current husband's late wife, Tammy Daybell. Yesterday in court, we learned graphic and disturbing details surrounding how the kids died. Today, the emphasis was on the children's remains as well as DNA. News Channel 7's Shira Matsuzawa joins us once again live from the Ada County Courthouse. Shira, walk us through some of that testimony from today.
Well, Doug, experts and DNA were the main focus of the second half of court today. That is until about 20 minutes before court wrapped up and the prosecution called Tammy Daybell's sister to the stand. Now, take a look at some video. This was Samantha William as she arrived at court this morning. She said she and Tammy were close. She said Chad called her the morning she passed away and told her she had been very sick and coughing, which she said didn't make sense because she saw Tammy 2 weeks before and she wasn't sick. She said there was also some unusual movements leading up to the months before Tammy died. She said she noticed a change in Tammy and Chad's relationship in June of 2019. She said when they visited, something seemed off. They were very awkward and Chad wouldn't converse with her husband like they normally did. Then in July, Tammy showed up to give her a birthday present and she didn't know they were in town. Chad stayed in the car and never came inside, which she says was weird. That's where her testimony ended for the day. Another big takeaway from today was from Idaho State Police forensic scientist Tara Martinez, who testified about analyzing latent fingerprints found on the plastic bag around JJ's body. She says 2 fingerprints matched Alex Cox, Lori Vallow's brother. Cox died in December of 2019 from what was deemed natural causes. The ISP forensic laboratory manager also testified about making DNA profiles for JJ and Tylee, and ISP forensic biologist Catherine Dace talked about testing tools from Chad Daybell's property and finding DNA samples that matched Tylee. She says she found positive blood stains and what could be charred flesh on some of those items. The state also called Rexburg Police Detective Chuck Considis back to the stand. He was in Chad Daybell's backyard on June 9th of 2020 when the children's remains were found. Today, he talked about obtaining satellite images of Daybell's backyard. The court then looked at photos, one from September 9th, the day investigators believed Tammy was killed. The detective pointed out a large discolored area in the photo from Chad Daybell's backyard. He says it was taken at 12:32 in the afternoon, less than 1 hour after police say Alex Cox left the property. Now, Tammy's sister is expected back on the stand tomorrow morning. Court is also expected to wrap up early around 1:30 in the afternoon.
So there you have it, Ed. Her sister was suspicious of everything that was happening in the weeks that led up to this. And Chad was acting odd, distancing himself from the family, sort of like a disconnect because he kind of knew what the plan was, I think.
Mm-hmm. And they should be looking at that brother as well. He said natural causes. Were any toxicology done on him? I read somewhere too that he was thought to have pulmonary embolism as well.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, exactly. And it's just such a coincidental consistency of all these people that are coming up dead. But we have Lori's husband from Arizona, right? So Charles Vallow gets shot to death with a .45 caliber by Alex because he said it was in self-defense. Just a whole bunch of stuff that just kind of makes you say, huh, how did it happen? And it was that argument of non-communication between agencies in investigations where they were not sharing information openly and freely. And then that leads for people to be able to commit these crimes and go undetected.
I want to slip through the cracks.
Exactly. I want to say thank you to Ron Daniels for the $50 super sticker. Much appreciated. Thank you to everyone who's in the chat. I'm watching the chat. Lots of great questions, a lot of things happening. I want to just highlight this one. Rhonda Rawl says, do you think Lori will be found guilty? They really haven't proved it yet. Listen, I respect everyone's opinions. I feel that they have done a great job of showing that she conspired to commit the murders of her son, daughter, and Chad Daybell's wife. They showed so much behind the scenes. Ed, I know you've been following this closely. So
as I said, and it appears now the brother was involved as well. With his fingerprints and DNA and so forth being present. And then again, I think his death needs to be relooked at.
Oh yeah, 100%. That needs to happen like right away. But again, they have this court case that they're doing, and there's going to be Chad Daybell following right next. That's up next. So he's on deck. And Chad Daybell, I think, we're going to see a lot of, and this isn't over. This isn't over by any stretch. There's still a lot of testimony that we need to hear, going forward this week. So I wanted to talk to you about the grave site on Chad Daybell's property. We see the FBI, the local police with a search warrant, unearthing these children's bodies, these small, young, 16, and it's just so sad because Tylee and JJ had their whole lives ahead of them, and because of their religious, extreme religious beliefs, but also the want for money and to be with themselves together, they said that they were demons.
Yeah, well, I hesitate to call it a religion. I think this is more cultish than an actual organized religion.
Right. Yeah.
And I think that, again, like if you look at your cults in history and you look at Jonestown and you look at the other Davidians and the people out in San Diego following the comet and so forth and so on, you have one overreaching leader who is so manipulative and was able to manipulate these people into doing these crazy things. I won't call it a religion. I'll just leave it at that.
Yeah, you know what? You're right, Ed. But I'm saying it's an extreme belief in their weird. Listen, no matter how you slice it, it is a religion because they were thinking and they were calling God by different odd names and people by different and odd names. And, Charles became Zeus and this is that. And I mean, I'm not getting names right, but it was all under the guise of the Lord. And it was their God that they were believing in this 144,000 that the world was going to come to an end and all that hogwash. But again, this is all coming to light in the trial, and we're hearing more and more from her friends and family and people that were around her. Let's just say thank you to Southwest 4x4 Explorers. She sends in a super chat and says, Ron and Ed, good to see you. Do you have any idea how long before Lori will stand trial in Arizona? She's referring to the death of Charles Vallow, her husband, at the hands of Alex Cox. I have no idea. It would just be a guess for Ed and I to try to, gauge that. But it's going to have to happen. I mean, she'll be hopefully convicted and sentenced on this one. And then, as we've seen in many other cases, they'll transport her there or do it by Zoom, or I don't know exactly how that will work. But I don't know. What's your thoughts on that, Ed?
Well, wasn't that death already ruled on?
It was first ruled as a
self-defense, right?
Self-defense, but then they've changed it. They've changed it.
Oh.
So she could be held. She could be charged with conspiracy.
Conspiracy.
Yeah, conspiracy. Yeah. And just because the brother's not here, and listen. We know that the brother was at the phone pinging at Chad Daybell's property and so forth. So you don't necessarily have to have the person alive. Again, he's not being charged with anything, but she's being charged with conspiracy in these three murders.
Well, there should be a digital trail. There should be all kinds of electronic evidence, text messages, emails. If they use things like Signal or WhatsApp, and the phones weren't deleted, that information will still be in present. Yeah, they had some burner phones, right? 8
or 9 of them amongst the two of them. So it was a really large amount of burner phones, and then that's for a particular reason. So thank you for this message here. Leona says she's guilty as sin, as the saying goes. Yeah. I want to just play a little piece here because Joseph Scott Morgan talks a little bit about the bones and the damage that was done to Tylee Ryan. While, again, a lot of this is somewhat speculative because we don't know exactly how the pickaxe and the shovel were used to try to break up her body. But Joseph Scott Morgan, who I respect dearly, has his thoughts and he puts them out here on News Nation. And then we're going to go to questions, Ed, if you don't mind.
Sure.
All right, let's let this roll.
Details tonight in the Lori Vallow murder trial, the cult mother accused of killing her two youngest children. An FBI forensic examiner took the stand today and said 16-year-old Tylee's bones had signs of stabbing and chopping injuries. While he was not able to determine what exact tools were used, the examiner speculated that it was either a machete, a hatchet, or a cleaver. A forensic biologist also testified that she found Tylee's DNA on a shovel and a pickaxe handle found at Chad Daybell's property. Chad is Lori's fifth husband. His wife was murdered just weeks after the kids were killed. Authorities found the two children buried on his property. Joining us now is forensic analyst Joseph Scott Morgan and criminal defense attorney and News Nation legal analyst Sarah Azari. Doctor, I'd like to start with you first. The forensic scientist on the stand today testified that she found two latent prints on a plastic bag that JJ was in, and that those prints belonged to Alex, Lori's brother.
Yeah, you're right. And Elizabeth, this is probably to say that this is a plethora of information. This is the most data that we received or have been exposed to at this point in this trial. We were just awash with it. And that is significant because for a long time, many of us had suspected that Alex did in fact have something to do at least with the hiding of these bodies. Now, whether or not he was actually the perpetrator, no one will ever know because he is now deceased. However, the fact that there was a latent print left behind by him puts him in contact with this bag, with the tape, all these other items that are out there.
And what about this testimony about the condition of Tylee's bones, that they showed injuries that were of a chopping type injury? What does that tell you?
Yeah, it's absolutely ghastly. These are going to be postmortem injuries or after death injuries. It almost seems, Elizabeth, and I'm kind of going out on a limb here, as if her remains in total had been burned, and then they went back perhaps because these are very rudimentary. It's not very well ordered. It's almost like they tried to dismember her body after it had been on fire. They went to the center of the body. These injuries were impacted around the pelvic area and the tailbone. So it's like they're trying to break the body up after the body has been set on fire. Absolutely ghastly stuff.
Oh, Sarah, this is the second day of this horrific testimony. Yesterday.
So Ed, I want to stop it there because I want to talk to you about the DNA and stuff on the bags that were these children were discarded and buried with, they talked about duct tape. They talked about the pickaxe, a shovel had DNA from Tylee on it. How important is that with the collection? Like you're a forensic expert, crime scene. We know the Idaho State Crime Lab was there. We also know that Faro Industries was involved. Their product was used to 3D laser scan Chad Daybell's property, the grave, and all of the searching that they did on that property that day. But just how important is that, because we didn't hear the defense, cross-examine any of these folks, and they're going to question how that stuff was collected and so forth, right?
Well, I mean, it's obviously that it was collected properly. They were able to obtain the fingerprints and the DNA from the materials. There was no cross-contamination. There were no mixtures per se. And, they followed the proper protocols and got it into the chain of custody and into the laboratory and for the proper analysis. What is more interesting is, okay, what is the source of the bags and the duct tape? Who had those bags? Who had those duct tape? Did they run that down? Did they find matching bags and duct tapes in any of these people that may have been involved in this incident in their residences or in other places that they have control over? You want to link these bags, these duct tape, so forth to the specific role that it came from. Or the purchase of it in a store and who purchased it. Did they run that all down? And they make these connections. So we know, try to understand who potentially did what.
Right. And how it was done. And like people have questions like, who was first, who was buried first, who got killed first. There's all these questions that you look to the forensics and you look to the medical examiner's office maybe to help determine that. But yeah,
well, it was definitely they didn't know what they were doing in terms of trying to disarticulate this body. They definitely didn't follow the usual path that people normally would take. Is they'll, you dismember somebody at the joints, your elbows, your shoulders, your hip, your knees, your ankles. If you're going to try to do this, but this appeared to be, set the body on fire and then pummel the body with blunt force instruments and try to break it up. I've never seen that.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I think that they kind of tried to put that into perspective of like their beliefs that they were demons. Like JJ's hands were duct taped, like with multiple rolls of duct tape. I spoke to Gigi from Law and Crime Network. She's a reporter for Law and Crime, and she said that some of the people who saw those photos relayed information to her how ghastly that was and how his face was taped up all the way up to his hairline. So duct tape, not just over the mouth, what we thought, it's over his nose, over his eyes, his hands had, huge duct tape. Terrible.
And that line of questioning of the pathologist by the defense attorney was amateurish at best and ignorant as well. If you and also, I mean, listening to the testimony, I found issues with the defense attorney's line of questioning and also with the answers that were being given. I mean, I clearly feel that a better job could have been done by the pathologist explaining why these ridiculous theories from the defense attorney about potential materials that were inside of the plastic bag being inhaled and found in the sinus and nasal passages or even the esophagus and stomach of the victim. The victim was duct taped from the chin to the forehead. All the mouth and the nose were covered completely. Okay, and then the bag is put over the head and found that way. That's the way the body was found. Bag, and underneath the bag, duct tape. Okay, so I guess he doesn't understand asphyxia. There's no air, right? And you're trying to breathe, but you can't breathe because your airways, your respiratory tract is blocked at your points of entry. Your mouth, your nose, it's blocked by the duct tape, and then added more is the plastic bag over the head. Okay, so I didn't understand the whole line of questioning, and I didn't understand why the pathologist didn't better explain how this works. And it was crazy. It was crazy. The one line of questioning from the defense attorney on the pathologist was he's basing all of his questions on movies. Right. What he's seen in movies. I mean, what a statement to make in court. Okay.
I was embarrassed by that. That was embarrassing, to say the least, Ed. I mean, I think
even the pathologist jumped on that one with both feet. He jumped in and said, that's scary. And it's true. It is scary that he's coming up with theories and a line of attack based on what he's seen in movies.
Yeah, it's bizarre 101. And I played it 2 nights ago when I went live on, I think it was Friday. Wait a minute, Friday night I went live and I talked about that and I played it. And to me, it was shocking to hear that you have a criminal defense attorney talking to a medical examiner, right? That was Dr. Warren. And he said to Dr. Warren, I'm basing this, like you said, on things I saw in the movies. I was just like, those were like cringe moments right there. That's
oh my God.
Yeah. I want to try to pull up that exchange. So I'm gonna search for it. Ed, if you want to scan the chat, let's say hello to everyone who's here. Team Brittany, thank you for joining. M. Finn, always good to see you. Hello from Brisbane, Australia. Linda Thomas, thank you for being here. Okie Dokie 7 says Bizarro 101. Exactly, DutyRon. Yes.
Mhm.
I mean, you can't make this stuff up. You can't even make this up. So Ed,
what is he doing? Trying to throw the case so that the defendant can say ineffective counsel?
Yeah.
I don't know what the hell's going on. But I mean, when I heard that, and then he got into it when he says, well, let's agree to, I disagree, or whatever the place, or whatever. It was ridiculous.
Yeah, it was. Ed, if you could scan the chat while I go and look at this, I'm putting you on solo, so you got the show.
So who's got some questions? I'm looking at the chat, so fire away. Okay. Well, hello to Miss Donna Marie Zero, Dawn Marie, Pete, Lieutenant Pete, good to see you. Mary of London, Mel Stiller, Holly, good to see you. RDNAC, Sandra H. All right, Tori. What else? D Banks. Lori was the puppet master. Maybe. Michelle, how are you? Annie from Michigan, good to see you. No questions, folks? The lawyer said he learned his stuff from the movies. Yes, he did. Southwest 4x4. Yes, he did. Unbelievable. All right. Our friends from the UK are in the house. Catherine. Rosa from Cape Town. Hope everything is going well for you down there. Stay safe. Jennifer Ramos, good to see you. Okay. Stormy, how does Lori trial going to affect Chad's? Well, there could be some impact if she either way. If she's found not guilty, that could hurt the next trial. If she's found guilty, that could also hurt his chances. Let's see what else. Hey, Ed from Jersey. Okay, Teresa, what part of Jersey? Okay. Why did they send the tools to the FBI? I'm finding more and more stuff out about the Oregon State Lab, and apparently they don't have some of the normal forensic testing capabilities for trace transfer evidence and so forth. So they had to farm these things out to other forensic labs, both private and law enforcement, in this case, the FBI. I watched the movies on the founder of the Mormons. It sounds like. Okay. Alex's body was cremated. Yeah, go figure. Okay. No toxicology on Alex. Okay. We got to be looking at the computers. You got to be looking at the text messages. You got to be looking at all those burner phones, when they were purchased, when they were used, see what cell towers they pinged on, try to track their movements in and around the areas of these scenes. Even though it's a burner phone now, but they have a possession of the burner phones, they can then use that information to, check the cell towers and so forth, and see what was going on with these burner phones, where they were.
All right, Ed, sorry to keep you waiting. I saved it in a folder, and it was in another folder, so I finally found it. This is going to be footage from my show on Friday night, so let's do that. One
second. I definitely want to answer this one. I hope not. I pray to God that JJ was not alive while being taped. I can just imagine the terror that this child experienced.
So I'm going to play this clip, and we'll go back to all the questions, because let's just play this, because we have to let everybody hear this, because this is ridiculous. All right, you're not seeing a double. This is not double. This is me from the other night. All right, so let's let this roll on, so she can call Brian Kohlberger.
Conclusion that this person
Field included. If he's convicted, you think he wants to talk to any news reporter? Banfield included. Okay. Oh, don't get me going on this. Don't get me going. I want to go to sleep tonight. All right, here it is. Let's take a listen.
Inside the sinuses. Did you collect any evidence inside the sinuses? Did you swab the sinuses and pull out any evidence? No. So how is it that you're coming to the conclusion that this person was smothered with a plastic bag?
Right. So going back, so JJ was found with a plastic bag over his head. It was duct taped tightly. He was bound. There was evidence of a struggle, and there's no other explanation of why he was dead. You find zero reason for them to be dead, then it's reasonable to conclude that that was the cause of death.
Okay, but let's back up a little bit. When I talked about swabbing the sinuses or swabbing the nasal cavity, you didn't do that?
I've never heard anybody doing that in this type of situation.
Okay, what type of situation are you talking about?
Bag over the head.
Okay, so when someone has a bag over their head and and I'm just going off of things I've seen in movies and whatnot.
Oh my God.
It seems
That's
like
scary.
it's scary to you?
Yeah, but you're going off movies.
Okay.
Holy cow.
Yeah, see, but first of all, yeah, I mean, totally scary, 100% right. But how come the pathologist didn't come back at him and say, hey, it's not just the plastic bag. His mouth and his nasal passages were covered completely with duct tape.
Yeah, and that would have shut him right down right there.
Uh-huh.
But you know what? I think that the doctor was probably waiting for the state maybe to come back and, you know, redirect questions to him to make that clear. And I don't know if that in fact did happen, but I don't think it did, because it's like 3 or 4 hours worth of listening back to, and I scrolled through it all and I didn't hear anything.
Listen, the crime scene photos were entered into evidence. The crime scene photos show the duct tape and the plastic bag,
right,
and how it presented on the victim.
Right.
I mean, this is a no-brainer.
Let me highlight this one, because this doesn't necessarily, and Southwest 4x4, thank you for your super chat and always in, you know, sending questions and things like this. Okay, but I don't agree with this, because again, they implied that JJ had scratches on his neck, and he, meaning that he was buried alive and he tried to get out. It's devastating. We don't know that to be 100% true, because those scratches on his neck could have been from him fighting the person who killed him, not having the bag put over his head. We don't know at any time whether did he die before the bag was put over his neck? Did he die when the duct tape, like Ed, you and I talked about this before we went live? Could he have died from just merely being duct taped over and now you can't breathe? And then the bag was placed over just to be extreme. And they had duct tape, like 6 or 8 rolls over his hands as he was duct taped and put into the ground. And they even put a piece of plywood over the grave to stop any of the indigent wildlife from getting in and digging them up. But what's your thoughts on this question, Ed? I'll let you give your thoughts on what Southwest has up on the screen.
Well, I mean, it depends. It depends on when his hands were duct taped. Because remember, his hands were duct taped as well. Okay, so at some point, maybe the hands weren't duct taped, and maybe they were duct taping his face at that point, and he was trying to get at the duct tape. Now, the tape would have to carefully be removed from the hands, and then you would have to examine underneath his fingernails to see if the skin tissue that could be associated with the neck was found in there, and then maybe you can make that leap here. But I don't know any of that, and I don't know if it was done or to the extent. And so, I can't say. It's purely speculative at this point.
Yeah, and that's how I feel on that. And it was no dig to her question, because it is valid, and it just, there's no definitive answer to this. We don't know if or when he was fighting or how he obtained those scratches and those injuries.
But why would scratches on the neck then lead to the next leap of buried alive and trying to dig his way out? I don't get that.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. That sounds just a bit far-fetched. Oh, Tori Hartman is here, our good friend. Hey, Tori, good to see you. Hope all is well. Great to have you here. She says, yes, I think the doctor was waiting for the state. Yeah.
He didn't need to wait for the state. He could have just jumped right in and said it.
Right. But he might have just felt like, I don't want to overstep here. I'm going to wait for him or her to come back at me. But yeah, you're right, Ed. And he has the knowledge. He's got the knowledge base where he can come back at this guy. But I think he was just fully disgusted with just the line of questioning. It almost seemed like it was like a joke to him. Like, really? Are you saying this to me? Are you really saying this to me, guy? Iron Range Rube sends in a $20 super chat and says, good afternoon from my girlfriend Ginger and myself. Oh, good afternoon. Thank you. So Shari Nevada Pup says, why duct tape after he was as guilty?
I can't make sense.
Yeah, I can't make sense of that one. Try to rephrase it and send it. Natasha Richardson, always good to see you. Thank you for joining. Teresa,
Matty Boy Sully, good to see you.
Yeah. Teresa Meza says 100%, Ed. It's a no-brainer. So she agrees with you. But yeah, it's horrible what these kids went through. Very, very sad. Very, very sickening. This day, these 2 days, these last 3 days, day 16, 17, and 18 were heart-wrenching to listen to.
Hey folks, don't get me wrong with what I said earlier. I pray that JJ didn't, but the possibility is highly probable that in fact he was alive when they started duct taping him, and he was in fear and terror while this was going on.
Horrible. Southwest sends in another super chat. I don't want you to go broke, so you could just send in those questions like follow-ups. So thank you for that. She says, from listening to the trial, I came to that conclusion. There were horrible details and parts I truly couldn't handle. There's many people that describe the jury and several of the jurors using tissues and crying, visibly upset. So a lot of people are reporting after the court's down from inside the courtroom, and Lori is showing very little and very disconnected from the whole these last 3 days. So that's in itself. Hey, I wanted to ask everybody in the chat. We have a lot of people here in the chat. By a show of hands here, press a 1 in the chat if you feel the state has proven or is on their way to prove beyond a reasonable doubt Lori Shallow Vallow's guilt. Press a 1 if you feel that they're on their way or they've proven it. Press a 2 if you think that they have more work to do. And you know what? The trial is not over. So there is still a whole nother at least week to go here. So I'm seeing a lot of number 1s right off the bat. Haven't seen any number 2s as of yet, but the chat is moving very quickly. Ed, when you see a number 2, let me know, because you have super keen X-ray vision, Ed.
Okay. Yeah, I'm psychic too.
Remember those X-ray glasses that you could get when you supposedly could see through? All right, here it is. I got it.
I saw it too, Kim.
Stop. Yeah. So me and Ed, we got it at the same time. Okie dokie is coming.
Okie dokie.
Yeah. Lieutenant Pete is on board with us. Tori Hartman is putting a number 1 in the chat. And it's always great to see friends from YouTube. And Tori's got a great YouTube channel. So she covers a lot of this true crime stuff. So thank you, Tori, for being here. I hope that we can see some videos from you soon, or you can come on here as a guest. You're always welcome here.
Listen, it's a high burden for any trial to meet the beyond a reasonable doubt. It's not the preponderance of the evidence. It's beyond a reasonable doubt. And all it takes is one juror to say, I have doubt. And then that jury gets hung.
Yeah. And
that doesn't mean that if a hung jury is declared, that doesn't mean that the prosecutor can't retry the case. They can. Okay. It's not a hung jury is not the same as an acquittal.
Exactly. Listen, again, like I said, we're not at the end, but they are getting close to starting to wrap up. And I think that, it's not fair for me to even say, somebody in the chat said, I don't think that they proved it yet. Until they wrap it up and give their closing arguments and their closing statements, it's not a wrap. So I'm going to be listening. We're also going to be listening to Trezell and Jacqueline West. There's so much forensics in the last couple of days, Ed. You were traveling, but I was listening on my headphone. It's only audio from the courtroom in Bakersfield, California. But they had lots of forensic specialists coming on, and Ed and I, and Melanie Little also. She's an attorney. I've covered the case with her. I think the three of us might get together or try to get together somewhere in the future to talk about the Trezell and Jacqueline West forensics, because there's talk about diapers being swabbed and all kinds of different things in that case. And Ed, if you were here back on U.S. soil and able to be on the same time zone with us, I think we would be discussing that. But we will definitely do it. We'll cover that case.
Absolutely.
Look for that.
Absolutely.
All right, let's
go
ahead.
I got to say, I know she's been found fit to stand trial, but people who can do stuff like this, they're just not right in the head.
Yeah.
Okay. Evil, mental illness, whatever you want to call it, sociopath, psychopath, there's any number of things, but man,
yeah. Rhino Girl from UA, she's in the building, and I always love that she's here and hanging out with us. So thank you for joining. Lindsay, she says Letitia Stout, justice for Gannon. Yeah. So many trials are going on. So many trials are happening at this point. But again, when you talk about the DNA on the shovel and the pickaxe, that's a lot of evidence, obviously, that this is on his property. This is on Chad Daybell's property. And Lori was staying on that property with him at that point. So you have him, the brother who was alive at the time, and then all of a sudden became dead.
Of possibly the same thing that may have caused the wife to die. All right, but we will never know because the autopsy wasn't conducted.
Right.
And it could have been a poison-induced pulmonary edema.
Yeah, exactly. So Jane says that she'd like to hear Ed's take watching from the UK. Well, if you scroll back, you can hear 57 minutes of Ed and my take on this thing. But yeah, there's just, again, you talk about this a lot, Ed, is forensics and the evidence. It doesn't lie. We hear the forensic people and DNA people talking about 2 gazillion 99 million percentage chance DNA is this person, and people get caught up on that and like how can they come up with why are those astronomical numbers being thrown out? It's a science, and it's something that you know a lot about, and
it's a statistical analysis. Okay, I mean, did you hear the numbers though? They were phenomenal. All right, 26 zeros. Right. I remember I listening to the testimony, and I was like, when she said the DNA analyst said the number of the potential for another person in that society to like 1 in oh my God, it was just mind-boggling. Again, another mind-boggling statistic out of DNA showing that, hey, it's their DNA. Okay, there's no way this is somebody else's.
Yeah, it's. And again, when you hear them speak about this, people are just like, how do they come up with that? But it is a science, and it's all definitive, and people have a real hard time holding on to definite things,
Yes, octillion. That's the word. That is the word of the day. Octillion. Remember it, folks.
Ed finds it and highlights it. There you go.
Okay.
So yeah, K.H. Walker says there's nothing really connecting Lori to the murders. She doesn't need to be connected to actually doing the murders. She can be convicted of conspiracy. The conspiring to commit the murders is what's going to get her life in prison and behind bars and never have her see the light of day. They don't have to, and this is where people get caught up in this thing, and that's why I'm so glad that I have Melanie Little and Joe Murray and other people who are lawyers that cover this case, like Pete Tragos, the lawyer and several others. You don't need to prove that she committed the murders. She's if you are convicted of conspiracy to commit these murders, you're getting that life in prison. And that's what we're looking for here. This evil monster does not deserve to see the light of day. And the prosecution knows exactly what they're doing here. And they know exactly what they're looking to get. And that's justice. JJ, Tylee, Tammy, and all of the others like Charles Vallow and others who were there was the attempt at the murder, to take their lives. So that being said, Ed, I think we're going to wrap it up. You see any more questions or anything because I see that smile on your face. I can always tell when there's something.
No.
Yeah.
No more questions.
Peanut butter sandwich for life, Ed. That's a good one. But a lot of these jails, they do bologna sandwiches, peanut butter and jelly, stuff like that. So ham and cheese sandwich, it is what it is. All right. So I want to thank everyone for watching, everybody for engaging in the chat, asking the questions. Ed is in Kosovo. Can you talk a little bit about what you're doing there, Ed, or is that secret squirrel kind of stuff?
No, I'm on assignment for the State Department Anti-Terrorism Assistance Program, and we're going to be training up the police here at the Police Academy on various aspects of crime scene investigation and terrorist investigation.
That's pretty fascinating, Ed. And you're there for a good deal of time. You're going to be coming back next week sometime, you said, right?
The 13th.
Yeah. Okay, good. Update on Oscar. His 7 teeth are healing. His mouth, he was actually playing with one of his toys today and running around the house. So Oscar is on the mend. He's doing good. I say he's almost 100% back, but we can't give him anything like anything hard to chew for the next month or so. So he's not going to be getting anything hard because he's got 7 less teeth in his mouth. So we're going to be good to Oscar, as a lot of soft food and so forth. So that's how it's going to go for him. Ed, everything good with Kara back at the home front? Everyone's good?
Yeah, Kara's great. I know I'm missing her, but it's funny because when Margaret and I came back from Japan, when the car service pulled up in front of the house, I called inside the house and told my son, "Hey, bring Kara out into the backyard." So because she gets so excited when we come home. So if you come through the front door, she's going to tear up the floor and all that other stuff. So I said, "All right, bring it in the backyard." And then we sneak into the backyard, and then just as we predicted, when she saw us, she just went full zoomy. Right. She was zooming around us, zooming all over us. It was great.
That's awesome. Awesome. Everyone's
nothing like a dog. Unconditional love.
Dogs, cat. I'm not a big cat person because I'm highly allergic to cats. Like if I go in someone's house that has a cat, my eyes are all watery and I'm sneezing. The dogs I'm a little bit allergic to, but not quite like the cats. So, but yeah, dogs are man's best friend. I love them. Is what it is, says Ed. Could you put me in your suitcase for all these trips that you go on, please? And thank you.
Well, listen, some of the places I go to, you don't want to be. Okay. Yeah. Trust me, I'm not going to all vacation spots. But anyhow, well, it was great being here tonight. And it's time for me to go to bed. Got to work in the morning.
Excellent, Ed. Thank you for spending the time with us. It's been a good hour. I appreciate everyone's comments, questions, and things of that nature. Debbie Galloway, great to see you. DC, Pacific Northwest. What else? One more person I want to say. Princess Mitch, thank you. Southwest 4x4, thank you for hanging in there and asking the tough questions. We appreciate you and your support. As on behalf of Crime Time with DutyRon and Ed Wallace, all the way from Kosovo, we are sending strength, prayers, and positive vibes to everybody that has been affected by Lori Vallow and Chad Daybell. Their reign of terror is over. Now we need to seek justice for the victims, Tylee, JJ, Tammy, and Charles Vallow. So I appreciate you guys listening. Until we meet, Ed and I wish you guys a great rest of your weekend and have a great week coming up. Ed, any final words?
Stay safe, folks. Stay prepared and watch your six.
Stand by for the cop team. Here they come. Good night, everybody.